When you hear the words parody song, your brain probably goes to either Weird Al Yankovic or Minecraft parodies from the early 2000s, depending on when you were raised. As a side note, this music video for Fallen Kingdom by Captain Sparkles made me cry when I was a little boy. But why, oh why am I talking about parody music in the year of our Lord 2026? Well, it's because I've been listening to a lot of old American folk music. Now, bear with me. Recently, artists like Pete Seeger and Woody Guthrie have been popping up on my music recommendations. Now, if you don't know the name Woody Guthrie, you've almost certainly heard one of his songs, most likely This Land Is Your Land, This Land Is My Land. And as I often do, I did a deeper dive into the music that I was listening to, and I found something interesting. A lot of these blokes from the old American cowboy, working class kind of scene were all full-on communists. And more interesting to me, a lot of their greatest hits were parody songs. It turns out that Woody Guthrie's song This Land Is Your Land, often seen as this patriotic American colonial song, is actually a criticism of private land ownership. And on top of that, the song was a parody, so it copied the chords and the melody of another song called God Bless America, an actually patriotic song, which Woody Guthrie thought didn't reflect the actual reality of the working class in America during the Great Depression. This was super interesting to me. I had no idea that parody was once considered this serious art form, whether it be political or whatever, that just became synonymous with humor basically over the course of a few decades. How did that shift happen? What happened to all the serious parody musicians? Are there still any out there that I just don't know because I don't listen to that kind of music? And these are the sort of questions that I wanted to answer today. Now let me take you back to the classical period of music. Now, I didn't know this, but apparently a lot of these guys had beef with each other. And the way that they would clown on each other is through parody. Now, if you're like myself, you're probably wondering, these guys were just writing like symphonies or whatever. How the hell could they parody each other's music? Because there's no like lyrics or whatever. Well, it turns out they were using this compositional technique called imitation. And it's basically when you say something stupid around your mates and one of them goes like, me, 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 and they repeat it back to you in that voice. It's that, but like the musical version of it. So one of your mates will be all like, oh yeah, I don't subscribe to Riley Hunt Productions. And then I would be all like, I don't subscribe to Riley Hunt Productions. It is literally that, but like music. And then the other guy's like, and wouldn't you believe it, Mozart, that's right, Wolfgang Mozart, like one of the only classical musicians most people know, actually did this. Mozart frequently wrote music that initially imitated different genres. In the Magic Flute, the character of Papageno sings simple folk-like melodies that parody the sophistication of aristocratic opera, emphasizing his role as an ordinary, relatable man. By contrast, the Queen of the Night's impossibly virtuosic arias parody the extravagant demands of opera seria, pushing the style of such extremes that it becomes both awe-inspiring and dramatically revealing. But while all these classical fancy people were all making parodies of each other and their high gowns or whatever the hell, normal everyday people were also making parody music. And this is through folk songs. Folk music has always been allergic to the idea of ownership. People would swap melodies, would swap lyrics, would swap chords. Maybe a song would start its life as like a sea shanty, and then it would become like a church hymn, and then it would become like a comedic song or a political song, whatever. It just has this fluidity to it that gives it its name. Folk music. It's for the people. It's written by the people. That's why a lot of old folk songs that you may hear on the radio or in a bar or whatever sound so familiar even if you haven't actually heard the song. The tune was not sacred, it was merely a vehicle to express what you wanted to say. A famous example of this is John Brown's Body and the Battle Hymn of the Republic. The melody existed before either song as a camp meeting revival tune called Say Brothers. During the American Civil War, soldiers turned it into John Brown's Body. Soon after, Julia Wardhowe wrote new lyrics creating the Battle Hymn of the Republic. The same tune has since been reused for labor songs, protest songs, football chants, and countless humorous parodies. By the 19th and earliest 20th centuries, this has become standard practice in Britain and America. Political campaigns, labor unions, churches, soldiers, and striking workers all rewrote popular melodies with new lyrics. In other words, folk music never really stopped parodying in its original sense. While the classical world slowly became obsessed with originality, folk traditions kept treating music as something communal, something to be passed around, reshaped, and given new purpose. Artists as recent as Bob Dylan did it with the old slave song, "No More Auction Block for Me," as the basis for "Blowin' in the Wind." As a side note, a similar thing happens with a lot of sports anthems. For my Aussies watching, the famous Richmond Tigers anthem, Tigerland, was actually a parody of a song called Row, Row, Row. And Good Old Collingwood Forever is actually a parody of Goodbye Dolly Gray. Both of these are two American love songs from the early 1900s. But I'm getting ahead of myself. The first major modern parody artist was Spike Jonze.
And now from Hollywood, Pet Milk presents The Spike Jonze Show.
In the 1940s and 1950s, Jonze took hit songs and classical pieces and transformed them with absurd sound effects, gunshots, whistles, cowbells, hiccups, and deliberately chaotic arrangements. Unlike later lyric parodyists, his comedy came as much from musical performance as from rewriting words. Songs like Cocktails for Two became enormous hits and proved that parody records could be commercially successful. Around the same time, Stan Freberg developed a different style. Rather than relying on slapstick sound effects, Freberg rewrote lyrics to satirize popular music, advertising, and celebrity culture, which is what most people think of when they hear the term parody song. His version of Heartbreak Hotel poked fun at Elvis's dramatic vocal style, while many of his recordings mocked the conventions of 1950s pop music itself. Which to me I find particularly funny. It's like when you watch Back to the Future and you see a guy from the 80s make fun of people from the 50s, and then we make fun of people from the 80s. It's a guy in the 50s making 50s music, making fun of 50s music at the time. In the 1960s, Alan Sherman helped establish the formula that Weird Al would later perfect, taking a famous melody and replacing the lyrics with entirely new comedic ones. His biggest hit, Hello Mudder, Hello Fader, borrowed the melody of Dance of the Hours and became one of the best-selling comedy records of its era. At roughly the same time, Tom Lehrer wrote sharp satirical songs that parodied musical styles, although many of his best-known works were original compositions rather than direct parodies. In Britain during the 1970s, the Barron Knights became famous for medleys that imitated current pop stars and rewrote chart hits with humorous lyrics. They were hugely popular in the UK and are often cited as direct precursors for the style of parody that Weird Al brought to an international audience. By the time Weird Al emerged in the late 1970s to early 1980s, he wasn't inventing musical parody from scratch. Instead, he combined Sherman's lyrical substitutions, Spike Jonze's musical precision, Freberg's pop culture satire, and the contemporary focus of bands like the Barron Knights into a polished format built around MTV-era hit songs. And that is what made him the defining parody artist of the modern era, rather than the first. Now that, of course, is not the end of the evolution of parody. Things like the internet happened, and all of a sudden there was huge booms around specific kinds of music parodies that people wanted to hear. And of course, I am talking about Minecraft parodies. Here's a little side note for you. Creating Minecraft parodies at their peak was a $150 million industry. It was absolutely this perfect storm for a few creators to make a bunch of money. YouTube was popping off, Minecraft was popping off, there was a bunch of kids on the internet, and all they had to do was take a few songs that were already popping off and change a few of the lyrics around to match Minecraft. I myself was a little boy during the 2010s, and me and my brother used to listen to all of these songs on repeat, non-stop. We loved these songs. I knew the lyrics to the Minecraft parodies of songs so much better than the actual songs on the charts. And of course, because of the internet, all of these pre-existing parody artists just got this resurgence of audiences. I mean, I knew all my friends were passing around old Weird Al Yankovic music videos, giggling and stuff. Amish Paradise, I'm So Fat. They were great, fun little songs for people to share around. That gets me to this question. What is the future of parody art? Are people always going to see it as this comedic thing? Is anybody still making serious parody art? And to my knowledge, Not really. A few somewhat serious parody songs have done pretty well in the past few years. And when I say the past few years, I mean the past few decades. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, that was a parody song. But ultimately, it seems like serious parody music is pretty much dead. It just seemed like this really interesting art form that just basically fell off the face of the planet. Maybe people respect originality a lot more these days. Maybe parody music is so unbelievably synonymous with comedy that even if you tried to make a serious parody song these days, people would almost definitely just accuse you of stealing the melody and the chords and changing up the lyrics and trying to pass it off as something that's your own. But ultimately, who knows?